What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I am going to introduce Philip Hill, Purebred and Steve Beecham. He runs Hometown Mortgage, and he also does speaking, keynoting, and workshops at stevebeecham.com. But before I formally introduce both of you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. Steve has an amazing book, actually, I have to say. I listened to it on Audible, Bass-Ackward Business. We're going to talk about it, The Power of Helping Without Hustling. So some cool authors I've had on. We had Michael Gerber of The E-Myth, one of my favorites. Chris Voss wrote Never Split the Difference, again, one of my favorites. Gino Wickman wrote Traction. It's a great book. And the reason Philip and I met is Jason Swank. So Jason Swank is also a previous guest twice over on the podcast. So thanks, Jason. You're indirectly related to making this happen. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to your Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do accountability, strategy, and the full execution and production. Steve, we call ourselves the magic elves that work in the background to make sure it makes it look easy for the host and the company. For me, and this is one of the reasons I love Steve's book, is number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And personally, I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire on this planet and share with the world what they're working on. And so if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com to learn more. And Philip Hill is the founder and CEO of Purebred Marketing. And Purebred is a digital marketing agency focused on igniting the most profitable revenue channels for direct consumer brands. They've driven over $100 million in online sales for their clients. And Philip's going to talk about how they do it. And they do it through relationships. And we're going to talk about that. And Steve Beecham, as I mentioned, CEO and founder of Hometown Mortgage. You can check them out at hometownmoney.com. They have a boutique mortgage company in Georgia, originating loans for customers. They specialize in self-employed individuals in unique situations, but he also does workshops, coaching, keynotes, and he's authored the book, as I mentioned, Bass-Ackward Business. Check it out on Audible. The Power of Helping Without Hustling. You can check it at stevebeecham.com. Philip, Steve, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Let's start off with, we'll talk about what you both do, but a couple lessons, Philip, that you learned from Steve early on in relationships and business.
Yeah. So coming out of college, I'd started a company or a couple companies, and one of them was working well. The other, my partner got sick, and I kind of got thrown into real estate of trying to figure out something that I had to do because my path ahead of me just got abruptly ended. And Steve, being in the mortgage business, he knew my dad. We knew a bunch of the same people, really. And my dad was like, you need to go talk to Beecham. He helped me so immensely with really no expectation of a 21, 22-year-old probably sending him much business at all. He helped me from teaching me all about referral marketing, how to make a name for yourself. Every connection that I could imagine that he would hook me up with. And then on the back end of that, he just kept sending me these leads. He never asked for one thing in return, but I have sent him so much business over the years with no expectation and just like a wonderful working relationship that I am proof of exactly what his book is, which is, Jeremy, how we even came, to the topic of talking about, Steve, of you saying that, what you just laid out of really helping others and building relationships there. And that's what Steve's entire career has been around and what he teaches other people about.
Steve, talk about when you hear Philip say referral marketing, what are your thoughts on when you have someone coming to you and they're asking, you get lots of referrals. What are your thoughts on referral marketing?
Well, first of all, I need to get Philip to preach at my funeral because that's pretty damn good. Thank you, brother. I love you.
I got you.
But I think referral marketing is people don't, everybody wants a referral, but I've said, how do I put myself in a position where somebody calls me and says, hey, Steve, I want to do a loan with you, or I want to buy what you're selling because Philip told me you were the guy, and what do I need to do, and what does it cost me? I said, how do I get to that spot where I don't have to go looking for people? They're looking for me. And then I like to tell a story that I kind of unexpectedly met Jeff Foxworthy. He was a founder of a school that my kids were in, and I met him in the parking lot. And he would already finished speaking, and I was kind of going into the school, and he stopped and he said, "Hey man, I'm Jeff." I said, "I'm Beach. Where are you from? You got kids in here?" So he asked me all these questions about me. And then he finally said, I'm running late. I got to go. And he leaves. And I thought, you know what? That's the first phase of that. Is we all want to vomit on everybody about how great we are. What happens if you say, forget about me? It doesn't really matter about me. It's about you. And I want you to feel important to me. And I want to make sure that I help you with whatever is important to you. And so from that moment when the celebrity spent his time and questions about me, I realized that I had to start focusing on that. So I started doing that. And then the second piece of that was, as I was reading the book, and I wish I could think of the book, but the guy was talking about, hey, people give, but just because they give doesn't mean they get. And the analogy that I use is, hey, if I'm supposed to set up the chairs for the school play, and all of a sudden I don't have enough time, or I don't have, my back's hurting, who can I call to come help me? Well, let's say I call Philip. I say, Philip, come help me, because I'm thinking, well, Philip's in the real estate business. He's not like at a job. He can leave right now. And Philip comes and helps me. And then afterwards, Philip goes, well, I went over there and helped Beach, but he's never sent me anything, any real estate deals or whatever. So this guy was saying, well, just because you give doesn't mean you get back. He said, you got to give in a wow sort of experience. And so if I call Philip, I say, Philip, I need some help setting these chairs up. And Philip shows up and he's got 6 football players with him. He goes, boys, let's knock this out. Hey, Beach, what time you want me to be back and bring these boys back? We want to help you take these chairs down. How can I help you do that? And then I go, wow, that was way more than what I expected Philip to do. And so reciprocity, getting a referral, is about creating the wow in somebody else. So it's not only about giving, it's about giving more than what is asked. And that's where a lot of people lose out on getting a referral.
I would love to hear your thoughts on both of your thoughts. And Steve, start with, how do you think about giving with no expectation? Like you were saying, because some people, there's a really good book by Adam Grant. And he talks about givers, matchers, takers. And then he said, givers are the least successful, but they're also the most successful, right? How do you think about giving without expectation?
That's what I do all day long. So this is kind of ties into another thing that I've learned later. And so we're going to do a little sidebar here, but a lot of people work on trying to find something they're passionate about. And what I've discovered is you really need to find something to do that's purposeful. And purpose to me is different than passion, right? I can be passionate about riding my motorcycle, which I love to do, but that doesn't mean that that's a business I'm going to be in. So if I find what's purposeful in my life, what's my calling, what am I here to do, then I can take that purpose and put that into my work. So my purpose is to help people get from where they are to where they want to go. That's kind of how I define it. It took me a while to get there, but that's the way I see the world. So when somebody walks in to get a mortgage, I think they're living here and they want to go there. So I need to help them get from here to there. Or Philip comes in and says, hey, I'm here with my business and I really need to get here with my business. I see that the same way. And so that's my job in my village, to help people get from where they are to where they want to go. And so that's what I try to express with everybody I'm doing. And I see it more from a calling standpoint than from a business standpoint. And then you got to have a business. I call it your widget, whatever your business is. It has to be a business that allows you to express that purpose. So some businesses won't allow you to express your purpose. And if that's the case, you probably don't like your job. So if you find some way to express your purpose in your business, then you just go about doing that every day. And then you go home at night and you sleep like a baby, and you did what you were supposed to do that day. And then if you give to enough people, then some of those people are going to give back. They're going to reciprocate.
You know, I do want to mention too, if you don't know who Jeff Foxworthy is, check him out. He's hilarious. He was a member of the Blue Collar comedy tour, and he's got a bunch of funny things that he released. You might be a redneck if, and he's got some Netflix specials, but he's a hilarious comedian. Philip, what about you? When you think of giving without expectation?
Yeah, so I would say the number one value that my parents instilled in my brother and I is exactly this. My parents were both ministers, both in ministry for the less fortunate. My dad's basically dedicated his entire life to the less fortunate and teaching us, that's what we did all growing up, from in our communities to all over the world. And so that's just like ingrained in me. I will tell you something I've had some trouble with is my business has grown substantially and have a larger team and just a lot more responsibilities. And my time is so constrained that it's been somewhat of a battle for me. I want to help everybody, and I have always helped everybody. And so much of like executive coaching and training and things like that is how you protect your time, which has been a fairly big struggle of overcommitting to things that I don't really have time for, of just helping people. That being said, I think you have to pick and choose who you help, how you help, and that there are ways for the life that you're in currently, that you have to find purpose and meaning and ways to help people. But it's just not realistic to just be a giver all the time without something on the back end. So I think that it's something that we all have to do. We have to give to others with no expectation of return. But there's a point that you have to be cognizant of yourself and your family and your priorities, which I think I'm trying to navigate every day. But on the, our business was created on, we had other businesses that had grown really big social media followings and big kind of online presence. And so people were just reaching out to me saying, how are you doing this? How are you growing your business? And so I started helping them, and all of their businesses started growing. And then their friends and family were going to them saying, what in the world are you doing? I see that you're blowing up online. How are you doing this? They're like, you need to go talk to this guy. And once it got to that point, I was like, I'm probably working 20 hours a week just helping people for free. Like, I can't do this for your friends and family. So at that point, ended up building out the agency model. And that's literally how our business evolved and got started. I'm just completely an accidental agency.
You mentioned your parents were in ministry. When you were growing up, what did you want to do?
I went to college. I bounced around a few different majors, and I went and sat down with the dean, and I was like, I don't think that I'm cut out for any of this. I've always just kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. Can I create my own major that is entrepreneurship? And so he sat down. It took a few meetings of kind of convincing, and we sat down and made a curriculum together. And one of those curriculums was actually creating a real business. And that business just happened to take off, and I dropped out of school with 18 hours left due to that. So I think my path was cut out for exactly where I've been.
Talk about what you do for a second at Purebred Marketing, and then Steve will get to you have an interesting story on how you started into the mortgage business. So Purebred Marketing, how do you explain to people what you do?
Yeah, so from a high level, we focus on the most profitable revenue channels for direct-to-consumer brands. Those are SEO, email and SMS, and then we build affiliate programs for brands.
We will get into building affiliate programs because you're building an army of people to promote other people's products, which is, I think, one of the best ways. It's endorsement, right? Direct endorsement. But we'll get to that in a second. Steve, talk about how did you get into the mortgage business, and what did you want? What did you want to do when you were growing up?
I've always wanted to be a race car driver, and I still struggle with that. That's always been my At first it was a motocross racer. And then as I got driving, I wanted to be a race car driver. So I'm a big race car junkie. But anyway, yeah, I'd been in a couple of different entrepreneurial businesses like Philip. I didn't finish school. And so I was in this one business just got married, buy my first house, went to see the guy, the friend of mine said, go see my brother. And I went down, he said, man, you need to come to work for us. I'm like, I don't want to wear a coat and tie. It's just not my kind of business, you know? And then the next evening I was at a party and a friend of mine walked up and said, dude, I just got fired from a job. I need a job. And I said, hey, call this mortgage guy. He's hiring, you know, he tried to hire me. And about a month later, my friend called me, he goes, man, I made like $10,000 this month. Hell, I wasn't making but about $3,000 a month. I'm like, really? And the next month, man, I made like $20,000 last month. And so for the first time in my life, I said, shoot, man, I got a wife. I'm going to take a job based on money. And I got into the business, and then they were in the middle of a refinance at that time back in the early 90s. And as soon as I got in, the rates went up, it all dried up. And I went 6 months and didn't do a deal. And then my brother bought a house, so I got my first loan, but I stayed with it. I kind of, for some reason, liked the way the business worked. It just fit my personality and my style. And so that's kind of how I did it.
I mean, you've been doing this at this point for, I think, over 28 years.
Yeah. Long time. And now my son's in the business with me, and he took him a while to decide that that's what he wanted to do. And then he kind of realized that, you know, that what we do fits his personality too. He's a lot like me. And so we've both been very successful at it. It's about, for us, it's a social business. You know, we're very social people. You know, I collect people for a living. That's kind of my thing. And so that's how I do it.
Well, I want to get back to this on bringing your son on board. Right. And the challenges, the advantages, the disadvantages. You know, someone listening may be like, you know, I'm thinking of my kids taking over my business or joining the business. I'd love to hear your advice and lessons on that. But Philip, let's talk about building an affiliate program for a second. You know, we're talking about relationships here, right? And that's what it is, really what building an affiliate program is. So what are the steps that you take a company through to build their affiliate program?
Yeah. So, you know, generally speaking, when they first come in, we have a strategy session. We're understanding their target market. Then we figure out where their target market is. What are the websites, the publications that they frequent? And then there's a lot of strategy that comes down, like, how do we drive higher average order values? How do we increase conversions? What are the right offers that we can create? Things like that to basically make the brand more money, right? But past that, it is leveraging relationships. So we are building new relationships and then continuing to engage those relationships in order for those affiliates to promote our brands. So basically the way it works is we pitch a affiliate, one of our brands, say we have a dog bed brand. We pitch them to promote this dog bed brand. We give them a little unique URL that they use that's unique to that affiliate. And so it tracks those clicks. And then if a sale is made, it matches it back up with that affiliate, pays them a commission. But where the relationships are really helpful is if you're trying to do this from scratch, it's really, really difficult. Or trying to do it yourself, it's really, really difficult. But for instance, in the pet space, we worked with one of the largest national pet retailers in the US. We've worked with dog bed company, dog food company, dog supplement company, dog superfood companies, dog car seat cover companies, like about everything you can think. A cat litter, we've gotten into some stuff outside of dogs. So when we go back and recruit a new pet brand, we already have all these relationships. They know who Purebred is. They know the name of the people on the other side of that. They know the reputation that we're going to vet these brands to make sure we're only bringing them quality brands that are going to make them money, and their earnings per click, which is the metric they look at, is going to be as high as possible. It is all leveraging relationships. And so we can recruit. We have tools and processes and systems that we can recruit for just about any consumer good product. But the difference in that first 3 months or so, really overall, but especially in the beginning to ramp up, is so much quicker for brands where we already have a bunch of relationships, because we're just reaching out saying, hey, you know us, you work with us, we have a new great brand for you. They're like, sweet, bring them on. You know, that trust is already built. They know who we are. It's a game changer in that, unlike about anything else in marketing.
So if someone is a pet company, they should call you.
more than that, but yes, if you're a pet company, you definitely should call us and we can help you out.
What other types of companies do you help besides pet companies?
So anything that's consumer products, we can build an affiliate program for you. Our SEO work, like everything we do works well for consumer goods, but our main target market, what we go after is pet space, because we just have so many relationships there. Really, we're an agency that evolved out of our own brands. Our brands were pet brands. So that's part of why we have so much expertise there. But then the health and wellness space, which is now spilled over into outdoor, and like we worked with Solo Stove, if you know Solo Stove. So it's kind of spilled over in the outdoor, and then like sporting goods. Health and wellness encompasses a ton of things. That pet space and health and wellness is great because most pet owners are more likely to be, or dog owners specifically, are more likely to be active, and so it's kind of spilled over there.
Did it start just because, I mean, I'm looking at your about page here. I don't know if you still have these 3 dogs or not, but did it come just from you start working at these companies because of your love for pets?
Yeah, more or less. So yeah, those were all my dogs. Gin and Juice are on the outside. They're right here behind me. Those were my first 2. And then Hef is over here laying with me right now. But yeah, I got Juice, fell in love with him, got Gin, and then realized that like everybody that has a dog, other than Beecham, maybe feels a little bit differently about his dog over there that he'll throw in the back of my truck, seeing me cross the street. But people love their pets. They'll spend aimlessly on their pets. And, I always say the kid space, the pet space, weddings and funerals are where people will just spend aimlessly. And so that's, understanding that and understanding consumer behavior around that has really propelled us.
Steve, I want to talk about your son for a second. And what are some of the lessons learned by bringing your son on board?
Well, it's first of all, you need a good relationship, which I've had with my son, Connor, and I think I have with all 3 of my kids. But, in his particular case, he saw me go through the ups and downs of the mortgage business. So our business never just goes like this, right? We're kind of, tied to the economy. Economy's great. People are buying houses. We're making money. If the economy's terrible and interest rates are high like they are now, we really struggle. And so he saw that as a kid. He actually saw us go through 2009 when we lost everything and had to start all over. So he wasn't sure he wanted to get into that. But he ended up going and doing another route where he was doing employee benefits. And then he wasn't real happy in that space. And a couple of people that were mentoring him told him, said, dude, what are you doing, man? You got this great family business and you're just, you got the same skills. Why don't you go take over your dad's business? Eventually, I'm sure he'll let you have it. So he came and talked to me and I said, yeah, you got to earn it, but I'll let you have it. And, or I'll let you buy it from me. And then that'll be kind of my retirement. You'll be kind of helping me. And so he got into business. And so I think the big thing was I had to let him fail in some areas. I had to let him teach me some stuff in some areas. So we both had to be open to new stuff. And we've done that. And as he's grown more confidence, right now he's doing way better numbers than I am. He's beating my booty all over the place. And he's loving every minute of it, So I think the big thing is that I got to let him do his part and he's got to let me do my part. I got to be open to what he's talking about. He's got to be open to what I'm talking about. And we've done that. And it's worked really well.
Yeah, I know you said relationships are the number one thing for you as well. And I'm sure people proceed with caution in this regard because they don't want to ruin their relationship with a family member. It doesn't have to be a son or daughter. It could be a family member. And that's a concern. What were the things that you made sure to put in place, or I don't know what ground rules you lay to make sure it doesn't ruin the relationship, right? Because it's easy to bring work back home with us.
Yeah, but we in our world, we live our work 24/7. So, we just work whenever the deal comes and we work on while we're on vacation and all. And so he's used to that. So that was easy for him because that was not unnatural in him seeing me do that. I'm at the ballpark and I get a phone call from an agent, do I take the call or not? And you just kind of have to work through what's important and what's not important. So I don't think we have a problem with that. But here's the big thing that I think about in relationships, and it kind of goes a little bit back to this Jeff Foxworthy thing, and I call it sort of my sex story. And it's like if Jeremy, if you and I were single and we're 20 years old, and we're in college, and we go into a bar and we look around the room, and you look over there and you see a girl and you think she's cute. And you might say to me, hey, Beach, do you know that girl? And I'll say, I don't know her. So now Jeremy's got to make a decision. And that decision is probably, am I going to go make this cold call, or am I not going to make this cold call, right? So let's say you decide you're going to make this cold call. And so like most people that go on a cold call, you've got to have something in your hand. In business, that might be a koozie or a flyer or something like that. But at a bar, it's probably a beer, right? So you go over and you buy a beer. Now you got a beer in your hand, and you walk up to this girl and you say, hi, my name's Jeremy. What's your name? And she says, my name's Sally. And then you say, well, I'm Jeremy, and I got a waterbed, and I live in a high-rise condo, and my daddy's a doctor, and my mama's an attorney, and I drive a Ferrari, and my grandparents are filthy rich, and they got a place in Nantucket, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that girl's going to go, I don't want to talk to this jerk, right? Well, I realize that that's what most of us do in sales. We walk in and say, hey, dude, stop what you're doing. Buy my stuff. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. It doesn't work. So what works is you go over there and you say, hi, I'm Jeremy. What's your name? I'm Sally. Sally, where are you from? What are you studying? Where do you do? What do you have fun doing? Blah, blah. The conversation's all about her. All the focus is about her. And then what happens to her is she sits there and you ask her these questions. And then at some point in time, she goes, he doesn't look like an axe murderer. He looks like a fairly nice looking guy. And then what does she do? She asks you the same questions back. She goes, Jeremy, now where are you from? What do you do? Then you can tell her about your Ferrari and your rich grandparents. But that's the way conversations go. So what I spend my whole time doing is anybody I run into, all I think about is, how can I be Santa Claus for that person? And so I just pour in if they need to meet people, if they need to meet companies. I try everything I can to help those people be successful. And then, like I said, some of those people reciprocate. But because I'm all in, it creates wows in people, and then they want to reciprocate. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is that I learned that I don't have to wait to see if that's going to be something that's going to reciprocate back to me. I'm just all in with everybody for anything. And so I keep a really large, pretty good database. And what I do is I spend most of my time calling all the warm people that I know, not the cold people that I know. So as I meet somebody and I have them in my phone, every day I'm calling 20 to 40 people to say, hey, man, how you doing? How can I help you? How's the world treating you? And that's all I do. And then sometime along the day, somebody calls me and goes, hey, man, Jeremy told me you were the guy I got to do business with. Bam. And nobody's asking me about my price. Nobody's asking me about my interest rate. Somebody pre-sold them to call me. And that, to me, is the world I operate in. That's what I'm trying to do.
I love it. What made you, I'm going to pull up this for a second, Steve. What made you decide to write the book, the first book?
So
if you're looking at the video, by the way, you can see we're at stevebeecham.com. We're at the books page. He's got 3 books here. The Bass-Ackward Business book, what I talked about. He also has What's Your Buzz, and also the tapes we play in our head. But what made you decide to write the first one?
So I had a mortgage brokerage firm. I probably had about 10 employees, and there was a law rule change in the industry. And what happened was a lot of the mortgage loan officers that were at banks were starting to feel like that wasn't going to be viable for them, that they weren't going to be able to stay there and make the money that they had been making. So all of a sudden one day, this guy calls me, he goes, there's like 8 of us want to leave the bank. Can we come to work for you? I said, sure. And then I'm scrambling. And then about a week later, a guy calls me, hey, there's 6 of us that want to leave the bank. So next thing I knew, I went from 10 to about 35 employees in about 2 weeks. And I'm going, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? I got to have sales meetings. I got to do, corporate kind of junk. Whereas before I was just really entrepreneurial. So I started writing down the concepts that I was using to build a referral-based business, because a lot of these folks were coming from businesses where the customer kind of came to them. That's why they were at a bank. And I needed to teach them that. And so as I was writing that down, I was basically what we'd call now creating sort of a white page and sort of an outline of how I was going to conduct these sales meetings. And at the time, I was president of the Mortgage Broker Association. We were having a convention like in Jamaica or somewhere. And I'm on the plane with these two other guys that own brokerages like me. And I said, hey, y'all look at this stuff. Tell me what you think. And they're all going, man, we never thought about this stuff. It's really cool. You ought to write a book. Well, then about 2009 happens and the world crashes, and I had a lot of extra time. So I started writing that book, and that book saved me, because once I wrote that book, I started contacting people about doing some speaking and stuff, and that launched me into my speaking career. And those speaking fees were what saved me in 2009, 10, and 11, when we lost 90% of the people that were doing what I was doing, got out of the business and closed up. So I was able to keep my mortgage company open and generate income from speaking to save me and my family.
Steve, I'm looking at right now the tapes we play in our head, right?
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, you say it in passing, but like if we go back to that time, that's a painful thing to go through. What are you thinking in your head at that time? How do you get through that time out the other end? Because people obviously see, oh, this is a successful mortgage company, has probably always been successful. They don't see the hard times. What were you thinking at that time?
So I'd spent a lot of time when I wrote that first book trying to interview highly successful people. And one of the people that I ended up interviewing was a guy I went to high school with, who was a small guy, but he was the best athlete anywhere in this part of the country. Because he was small, he ended up in baseball, but he was the best basketball, football, and baseball player. He ended up playing in the American League for like 20-something years, went to 2 World Series. His name was Tony Phillips, played second base for the Oakland A's and Detroit Tigers. And I went to high school with him. Well, he had retired about that time, and I ran into him, and I got in this conversation with him, and he said he lived out in Phoenix. And I said, I'm going to be out there in a month or two. He was in town, like visiting his mom and dad. I said, I'm going to be out there for a speech. I said, I'd love to go have a beer with you. So I called him and I said, hey, I'm flying in tomorrow. He said, I'm going to pick you up at the airport. And I said, no, man, I got a rental car. He said, no, I'm picking you up at the airport. So he picked me up at the airport, and we're driving in the car. And I said, Tony, I said, you know what, dude? I said, I really don't know. What's your situation? Are you married? You single? He said, Beach, my wife and I are separated right now. He said, but we're going to get back together. I said, really? He said, yeah, Beach, my shit always works out. And I went, oh, yeah? I said, yeah. Then we got to his house. I said, what are you doing now that you're not playing baseball? And he picks up this baseball in his garage, and it's got numbers 1, 2, and 3 on this ball. He said, I've been going down to the batting cages, and I've been watching these dads trying to teach these kids how to catch. So I took a ball, and I made a magic marker on it with 1, 2, and 3, and I'd say, catch it on 1. And he said it got to where they would watch the ball go into their glove. So he said, I'm making these balls, and I'm going to start selling these balls, and I'm going to make a bunch of money off of it, Beach, because my shit always works out. And I realized, and so that weekend I was with him, I heard him say that hundreds of times. My shit always works out. And I realized that that's how this kid that didn't have the best situation and wasn't the biggest kid in the world ended up in Major League Baseball, because he believed in his mind that his shit always worked out. And so when my stuff went down the tubes and I was losing everything, I kept saying to myself, my shit's going to work out. My shit's going to work out. My shit's going to work out. And that's what got me through 2009 and the crash.
Is this him right here?
There. That's him.
This is him. Yeah, I've heard of him before for sure. I follow baseball pretty closely. This is great.
Yeah, he passed away recently, had a heart attack. Yeah, so
it's terrible.
I miss him. But just that one weekend gave me that tape to play. And then as I started interviewing highly successful people, I started realizing that there were there's a lot of successful people have this really sort of short, quick tape that they consistently play over and over that's a proactive, positive tape, and that people that aren't successful are paying a short, negative tape. Like my mama said, I ain't going to work out to be anything. You know, my daddy said, I'll never be rich. And they're playing that tape, and so they're not getting anywhere. And then you got somebody on the total opposite end of the spectrum playing this tape that my stuff always works out, or I'm the luckiest guy in the world, that or everybody wants to do business with me, or whatever it is. And so that's what that inspired me to write that book.
That's awesome. Steve, thanks for sharing that. Philip, on that, what are some of the things for you that you play in your head? Because you've always been entrepreneurial, you always started businesses. What are some of the things that you play in your head to keep you going?
You know, I really don't focus a ton on mindset. Not that I don't think it's important, but I think I just naturally kind of had a growth mindset. Like, I'm never satisfied. I want more. I'm pretty confident in what I do, but always eager to learn and grow. Having a number of employees over the years now that I see the complete opposite of that, it just instills in me, one, a little more confidence in the mindset that I have, but two, the realization that mindset is really important, because a lot of these people are really smart, really capable, and then they just won't think for themselves, or they're not resourceful, they won't figure things out. And there's like the coaching that, you know, week over week is, you are enough, you're good enough, you're just as capable as these people you're trying to put this on. Like, you have to break this mindset of yours. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things that holds people back. A lot of these people that you meet that are ultra successful, they're not any smarter or any more capable than people that they're making literally 1,000 times more than. And it's just this broken mindset of being just a fixed mindset. What it would be called, of just being stuck where you are. And if you have that mindset and you're stuck in your ways, you're probably going to be there for a long time to come.
I'd love to hear both of your favorite books or resources. It could be an audiobook, it could be a podcast, it could be a book. What are some of your favorite resources that you've learned from throughout the years that you'd recommend?
Well, I think I've got a bunch of them, but I think one of the first books that really helped me in my marketing stuff was Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And then, you know, then after that, Blue Ocean Strategy, which both of those are about how do you create stuff and products that kind of put you in the different from anybody else. And then I read a book, and I don't know where I read this book, and I can't find this book. And if y'all find it, y'all please tell me, because I talk about it all the time. But this guy was writing about I guess HR employee stuff, and he said, you know, if you ever notice, you never see a professional coach or player complain about getting fired or demoted. And he said the reason why you don't is it's clear to everybody that's participating what the rules of the game are. You know, if you run out of bounds, the play stops. You know that if you're the offensive coordinator and you're not scoring enough points, you're not going to be the offensive coordinator long. If you're the coach and the owner says, I want to get to the playoff by year 2, and you don't, and he tells you you're gone, you knew that was the deal going in. And he said, we don't do that with our people. We don't spend time sitting down with somebody and being very, very clear about, this is how you fail. This is how you succeed. This is how you keep your job. This is how you get a bonus. This is how you earn less. If we did that, we would have a lot less problem, and people would quit before you had to fire them. And that, I wish I could find that book, but man, that's been a game changer for me. And then another one I just read was something about enough. And God, what was it? Oh, another one is Who, Not How. Have y'all read that one? Who, Not How?
Yeah.
That was really good for me, because I look at something, I go, man, I want to do that, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know how I'll come up with the money. I don't know how I'm going to take the time to do that. And that book was about, don't figure out how, just figure out who you know can help you figure it out, or who can bring the money to the table, or who has the expertise. And that's been the big thing that I've been working on lately, is helping me expand in some areas that I want to go. And I've been trying to find the who's and not the hows.
Yeah, I think that one's with Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Who, not how.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Phil, I thought you were going to say, Steve, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Well, actually, they wrote a second book on that, How to Influence People in the Digital Age. And I'm actually quoted in that book, like page 14. So if y'all got nothing else to do. But the guy that wrote that book actually wrote my Bass-Ackward Business book and put some of that theory in that book. And but that and Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, those, I don't usually bring those up because a lot of people are kind of on to that. But I mean, those are like 101. You got to start there. You got to start there.
Totally. Philip, what about you? What are some of your favorite books, resources?
Yeah, so I read a lot of books. It's funny, like growing up, I sparknotes.com my way through every book report and test on a book, probably from middle school, high school, college on. I started out reading some of those, like Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And those are, kind of simple concepts to understand. Now I read like pretty much only very actionable books. Like you mentioned, Gino Wigman has been on the podcast. Like I have Traction sitting right next to me, like Implementing EOS. I just got done reading Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, after a workshop that we did with him a couple months ago. And it's about the best book I've seen for any entrepreneur or executive of like actionable steps and resources to help make, better decisions. And I'm really high. I just finished that book today. I'm really, really high on that book right now. And learned so much. I've already used some as I was reading the book. Like I'm putting all of the stuff to use. I would recommend that book right now, probably as much as any. Maybe it's because it's what I'm just coming off of and reading. And the next book I'll start tomorrow is Rocket Fuel, which is another, EOS book.
Have y'all read that ClickFunnels book? The guy that did ClickFunnels?
I read a bunch of his stuff.
What do y'all think about that?
I think Russell Brunson's the best direct response marketer there is, other than maybe Dan Kennedy. A lot of his books are very actionable. Some of them are like ClickFunnels is a huge company, right? And so I've ended up paying for like workshops for them there was one that you had 30 days to do just to make sure you actually did it. And the workbook that they send you in the mail, I didn't get till after my 30 days. So like they got my money and I didn't even have a chance to do it. And then it was just a debacle trying to get it back. But I think that Russell Brunson, I think he's probably a very good human being. And I don't think there is anybody better to learn direct response marketing from than him.
But you know what? That same stuff, I'm reading one of his books right now, and that same strategies that you're doing to put together those funnels is really the same strategy you need to do any business, even if it's not an online business, telling your story. Huh?
The way they do it and what ClickFunnels is built to do is just so scalable. It's like testing all these offers. You find an offer that works, you just throw money on it, and then that gasoline just lights it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great book for anybody in any business.
Which book are you reading?
It's in the house. I don't know. But it's I don't know. I think it's his most recent one, but
they have a bunch. There's like expert secrets. There's traffic secrets. There's
expert secrets.
Expert secrets. Okay. It's funny you mentioned that, Steve, because when their stuff comes out, I will go to their website. I will buy the book, and then I will buy the upsell, and then I just follow their just from a marketing perspective to see what they're doing, how they communicate with me, and I will just buy the stuff. Just to learn from what they're actually doing. I mean, the stuff is good too. And I'm going to share it with in a second. May rest in peace, Dave Woodward, who was with ClickFunnels. He's not alive anymore, unfortunately, but he talked about and broke down their funnel on the podcast on how they're like webinar funnel, their book webinar funnel, and how they started, they funded ClickFunnels through webinars and how they sell on the back of webinars. So he walked through the process on it. It was really cool. And you mentioned, Philip, Rocket Fuel was an interview I did with Mark Winters, who co-wrote Rocket Fuel with Gino Wickman. And I think they have a free quiz on their website somewhere. where you can see like if you're a visionary or integrator or what degree, but that's also phenomenal.
I don't need to take any of those tests.
You know what it is.
Yeah.
Visionary all the way.
All the way. We do these psychological assessments for hiring now, and it would tell you very clearly when I've taken mine. If I had to apply for a job and somebody gave me these assessments, I wouldn't get a job anywhere. Nobody would hire me.
But I just want to thank both of you. Thank you for sharing your stories, your wisdom. Everyone can check out purebredmarketing.com to learn more. You can check out stevebeecham.com to learn more, and check out his books and everything else. And I just wanted the first one. Thank you both for joining me. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Got it.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I feel like $100 grand.